I'm tired of having fake conversations, so we just have to say this is gaslighting, right? So this guy was convicted by a jury in a state court. So no matter what Donald Trump decides to do, if he issues this federal pardon, he's going to sit in jail. So what's the purpose of it? Why would you go down this line, reopen this wound when it's not going to have any impact whatsoever?
You know, I don't think they know. I mean, you're 100%. What he says is absolutely correct. It's a silly conversation. So the trial we all watched on TV was the state court trial. Right. The way Donald Trump does not, or any president doesn't have the power to pardon anyone in the state court, like he can't pardon himself, and only the governor of the state can do that. It's the same thing here. So hypothetically, if Trump did pardon him, what happened was after he gets convicted, he then goes into federal court on civil rights violation and he pleads guilty to 20 years. So, but it runs concurrently at the same time. So if Trump pardons
he's serving the same sentence.
He's still standing.
And what he's doing is, so in the state court case, he was found guilty by a jury.
Correct.
In federal court, he pled guilty. So he acknowledged and accepted responsibility. So you're going to pardon him despite the fact that he accepted responsibility for something, obviously saying he did it because you have to tell a judge and confirm that you're accepting this plea for a reason, and there's not going to be any impact whatsoever. So other than to gaslight, other than to reopen these wounds, what's the purpose? Why are we having this conversation? Why is Elon Musk joining in and kind of making this a bigger issue?
I'll tell you why. I mean, quite honestly, because we've gotten to a point where I think they want to incite violence. They want to incite protests so that they have an excuse to invoke what Donald Trump wanted to invoke last time, but was not allowed to do by some members of his cabinet, which is to invoke the Insurrection Act and take more power. And I'm sorry, I know that sounds cuckoo, for Cocoa Puffs, except that we know he tried to do that last time and was stopped by people in his own cabinet. And so this is to create dissension. This is to create animosity. This is to create protests in the streets so that he can go out there and put a stop to it and basically do what he was not allowed to do last time. And take even more power.
I think we can't avoid the racial message.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
That is the being sent, the dog whistle. And I think it's a lot about dividing people, otherizing people. And just having this conversation is about that, the way that they're treating Latino immigrants. It's about that. It's about making certain white people feel better, more powerful than black people, Latino people, immigrants, you name it.
It is
find
that.
the group that you can define as
quickly,
other.
I spoke with the brother of George Floyd, Flanice Floyd, who was there on the ground for a very long time. And I just wanted to read a statement. In talking to him, I covered this from the very beginning to the very end, stayed in Minneapolis for about a year and followed the trial and followed the case and was there during the protests. So here's what George Floyd's brother said to me. He said, if the president were to do this, it would hurt us. It is so personal. We saw our brother tortured to death. My niece would have to see him walk freely while her dad is in the ground. If he does this, it will set America back 400 years. The ones pushing for this are trying to remove any power that black Americans have to get justice. It is disgusting. Why would you do this? Why would you re-injure this family and America? So why is Musk pushing this
look,
idea?
I think the good news here is, from my understanding, no one at the White House is entertaining this. There isn't any political advantages strategically for the president to even consider such a thing. Sometimes stuff on social media.
Elon Musk is in the White House.
Well, sometimes I think what we see on social media, Sarah, if I'm just being frank, probably should be ignored. I just got to be honest. I think this guy has had his attorneys attempt to appeal, from my understanding.
Yes.
And at every level, they have failed. The justice system appears to have worked the way it was intended to work. I think the White House is right to ignore this, to keep focusing on other things. If Musk wants to put this out here, he owns Twitter. He can do whatever the hell he wants. But from my perspective as a strategist, the White House needs to just ignore this.
But
Nothing
Musk
will come
is
from this.
part of the White House, and Musk is retweeting this to 319 million people. So he's putting it out there, and when Musk says things, Donald Trump listens. So what do you do about it?
I don't think the president's going to listen to this.
And should we ignore it? Because we're put in a position where, do we ignore this issue of gaslighting, of trying to incite things, and just act like it's not going to happen because there won't be nothing will come of it because he'll still be in jail? Or do we focus on it and try and make it an issue. So now you're
is-
putting us in a position to have to decide, do we want to address this or
But hold
not?
on, let's
Do we
look at
wanna
where it's
open this
let's
room or
look at
not?
where it's
But
coming
the
from.
White House
This
hasn't
isn't coming
acted on
from
this.
this isn't coming from someone at the Department of Justice. This is coming from an entertainer. That's what he is, Benjamin.
no, it's coming from
He's an
someone who
entertainer.
was-
And look, it worked. It worked. It's a topic tonight on this #1 rated show
talking about
on
More so
CNN.
because the head of Doge.
Someone who spoke at the cabinet meeting, someone who was there yesterday.
We are all
retweeting
driving
it.
people to go watch Ben Shapiro right now. We're all driving people. What'd he say? What's going
But
on?
Arthur,
It worked.
with all due respect, he puts these kinds of people in positions of influence. Dan Bongino is now the #2 guy.
That's your buddy.
No, not my buddy. Believe me, not my buddy. At the FBI, right? Pete Hegseth is running the DOD. I mean, these are all people who you could have said 6 months ago were the same jokers whose job was to go on TV or go on their podcasts and get ratings, and now they're in positions of
And he's
influence.
Dan Bongino is
dismantling.
also a Secret Service
He's
agent. He's a New York
dismantled the
police
civil
officer. I don't
rights.
understand the
Yeah,
correlation.
Bongino had some.
Dismantled
He has
the
real
civil
security.
rights
Security.
department at the DOJ, the departments that would be in charge of investigating cases like this at a federal level have ceased to exist, basically.
And we can't ignore that. That the person who is now talking about DEI being a problem, dismantling things at the Department of Justice and everything else, is talking about Derek Chauvin needs to be pardoned. Those things don't happen in a vacuum. They're all coming together for a reason, and we can't ignore it.
Until the Justice Department, until the White House, or Caroline Leavitt, the president's press secretary, says the president is considering this, I think this is a nothing burger. I think we can move on. Elon Musk tweets a lot of things. Do we debate that President Trump is now considering every single tweet that Elon Musk puts out on X every single day? Absolutely not. I think we should put that in that category and keep it moving.
And not speak up and say, "Hey guys, this shouldn't happen. We don't have the right, or we shouldn't
The
do
White
that."
House isn't considering this. The
Right.
Justice Department isn't considering this. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't think anything.
And you think it's a bad idea.
Of course, I think it's a bad idea.
Let me
I think
throw
most people would
something
think
out
it's a
here.
bad idea.